Aw, baby Aventurine, how cute. Having two kids of my own, I can't help but feel pretty damn bad for this guy. Aventurine has one of the most tragic stories I've ever seen in a video game. Man, this guy's story's a buzzkill. I know I already touched on this in a recent video, but I want to go more in depth with the IPC, what they're doing in Penacony exactly, their whole game plan, and just the corporation in general. Also, Aventurine might not just only be trying to set it up for the IPC, but also try to escape his slavery as well. Hence his conversation with Acheron. But it's hard to say, they are really trying to paint IPC as the villains. They definitely seem like they like to have their hand in every single situation or pot. And oh my god, what contract do I have to sign to be able to work side by side with her? But it does seem like the ICP, sorry, not the ICP, but the IPC, seem more like they're in the business of making money and profiting rather than actually peacekeeping. Just a little side note, I would totally drop some cash for Shaggy 2 Dope to be a character. But the Interastral Peace Corporation has a very sinister vibe about it. It takes advantage of struggling planets, and people for that matter. All of its members seem to be very tragic and had problems on their home world. And the ICP, the IPC, seem to be exploiting this in different individuals. If you actually look at all the members of the IPC, or at least the ones we know about, like Topaz, who was on a struggling planet and the IPC came to save the day, Aventurine, who was on a struggling desert and desolate planet, becoming a slave and then being bought by the IPC, is essentially still a slave, so he cannot afford to make any mistakes in his job. Now, to break this all down, what exactly is actually happening here? Because I know they kind of portrayed him as an antagonistic type of character, only for this new quest to kind of paint him in a very sad light. Well, it's all a facade. That is the whole point of his act in 2.0. Aventurine is literally in control of nothing, and is basically making it up as he goes in Penacony because the family are always passively hostile towards the IPC. Probably because they know they want it back, and because the IPC actually owned Penacony long ago. It was a planet for prisoners, and then they kind of formed this society of Dreamland, and once the Stellaron erupted and the Aeon of Harmony came down, the IPC lost their control over Penacony, so it's always been a struggle back and forth. So the family's always hostile towards IPC representatives like Aventurine, and everything that he does is to facilitate and conceal his scheme, which he buries under multiple layers, so people don't realize the goal until after the fact. For instance, he not only hides his own cornerstone by smashing it, but by smuggling two additional ones in their place, one of them being Jade's that looks almost identical to his own, to not only fool Sunday and the family, but also, as was stated, to let Jade do something with this later. Never let them reveal your schemes, which will help the IPC reclaim Penacony. Why they want to do this is because Diamond wants it. Diamond is making a push to become an IPC board member, and he needs the Stonehearts to earn results. Getting a foot in and control over Penacony would be a big step and big feather in his cap, but it's problematic because of the family. So Aventurine is there because he's the type to not only take crazy risks, but somehow succeed through luck and grit. Aventurine, for his part, doesn't really value himself, and so he puts himself forward into dangerous situations, probably because he's been a slave his whole life, or a big portion of it, and he lost his family. It is really quite sad, his situation. That is sort of his whole gimmick. High risk, high reward, an all or nothing type of guy. He is literally the perfect person to accomplish what he did in Penacony, staging his own death to get to the other side, manipulating Acheron and the Trailblazers to actually see if death can happen in the dream world. He was willing to risk it all. And although we'll have to wait for 2.2 to actually see what happens with this character, I do think he does ultimately want to live a free life outside of the control of even the IPC. He's always been a slave and was sentenced to death by the IPC, but instead they hired him. That is why he's so efficient, because he can't afford not to be. His life's always a gamble, it's always on the line. We all know about Topaz on Jarrillo 6, how she sort of muscled her way in there, using their debt as leverage to try to gain resources and try to incorporate the IPC's intervention with that planet, get her to sign documents, but Bronya ultimately decides not to, where we see Topaz actually get pretty hostile with us until she finally realizes that she has a conscience. But making money seems to be the main goal of the IPC, and having a conscience in these situations does not sell in a boardroom. They're in it for the money and what they can gain. They're not helping these planets because they have a bunch of money and resources and just want to help for the goodness of their hearts. They want to gain something, and each planet they visit is strategic, and each person they recruit equally strategic. They recruit people that either have no other choice like Aventurine, or somebody like Topaz who they actually saved her planet from actually literally dying off. Because from what Topaz describes, her planet was pretty apocalyptic and on the brink. In Aventurine's case, his birth name was Kavishka, born on the planet of Sigonia, that has an extremely harsh surface and environment with very low precipitation, a dry, desolate, barren-like land, and it is constantly at risk of being hit by small-scale celestial objects. It's basically just a crappy place to be born. Everyone struggles to live, and on that planet, the human inhabitants are divided into several tribes. One of these being the Afghan. Among others, there's also the Kathakans, who is hinted at by his sister in one of those little flashbacks to be bloodthirsty. It was also stated that his dad died in some quicksand, so I think his mother was killed by the Kathakans and the father was killed by the environment. A perfect planet for the IPC to get their hands on. His sister would ultimately die too, and Aventurine would be taken in as a slave, having a barcode tattooed on his neck, and it is unspecified how long he was a slave before he would actually kill his own master. Which brings us to this scene where Jade is trying to decide what to do with him. He is sentenced to death, to the gallows, for killing his master, and no lawyer will touch him. But the IPC, like we talked about, are in the business of making money. They see a ton of potential in Kavishka. Even as a young boy, he was always extremely lucky. So they decide to actually recruit him, still being a slave and on a short leash. His death is impending at any moment, should he slip up, stray off course, or outright betray them. But being a slave being sentenced to death, he has absolutely nothing to lose. And that is essentially how he joined the IPC. But we have yet to see them recruit somebody from a planet that they actually failed to save. You see where I'm going with this? It's basically an interstellar corporate business. And as for Diamond, after the IPC actually receives an invitation to a banquet from the family in Penacony, Diamond actually convinced the head of the material logistics department to lend his support in favor of this project regarding business on Penacony. Subsequently, Aventurine got assigned to this, as we know, but it's business to these people. Diamond is also a leader of the Stonehearts, all possessing a cornerstone that give them abilities and powers, all coming from Diamond himself. He's an emanator of preservation, so he has much stronger abilities than your average Stoneheart. Other Stonehearts that we know of are Topaz, Aventurine, Jade, Pearl, Obsidian, Opal. Wait a minute. You're telling me this whole time all these characters in the IPC are named after minerals? What? And probably, I don't know, sapphire, emerald, ruby, maybe a little platinum. You know, all the stones or Pokemon games, I guess. And we all know that they're ranked. Obviously, Diamond having a P47 rank, Obsidian with P46, Opal with P46. They're the highest ranking 3 among the ones that we know of. Aventurine with a 45, same with Pearl. But Topaz, as we know, got demoted in the Jarrillo 6 quest. She was a 45, now she's a 44 because she decided to let Jarrillo 6 and Bellabog do its own thing. Yeah! Jade is the only one we currently don't know her rank. But I'm assuming because she actually hired Aventurine as a slave, she's probably a 46 or 47. But is the IPC actually evil or bad? Are they the villains or one of the villains in this game? Advocating free trade from a business perspective, the IPC is a business that issues money and monopolizes resources. From a startup perspective, the IPC is a selfless support group dedicated to the Aeon of preservation. And almost all business transactions in the cosmos are based on the credit system, created by the IPC. They dominate through wealth and relentless expansion that has given the IPC the image of a large business empire-like dictatorship. When it was actually founded, it was a group of faithful people from all across the cosmos that actually helped supply goods and materials to struggling planets. But in its current state and current day, it has long departed from its initial mission. With all the changes it's undergone, it now exists as a predatory colossus in the world of business. Essentially, to say that the IPC is evil is like pretty much draw inspiration from our real world in our, reserve banks. We all have bank accounts, and unless you're a stupid rich person like Elon Musk, we all have a loan on things. I have a mortgage on my house right now, my truck. Point being, everything that all of us more or less do is on a loan system. And what happens when you don't pay up? And much like the real world, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing without making a ton of money hand over fist. Whatever my house costs, I will pay thousands of dollars extra in interest. The IPC functions exactly like our real world banking system, with a bit of government influence as well, with a bunch of board of directors, a bunch of rich boardroom people, and whether you're talking about Honkai Star Rail or our real world, the boardroom is going to choose money over anything else. That is the way of the world. But if not paying my mortgage meant that Jade might come pay a visit to me, I might consider it. But seriously though, but all joking aside, are they evil? Not inherently, but yes, they're not gonna kill you. They have incentive to take over planets, and especially vulnerable ones, because they have the money and resources to do so. They sell you and pitch you a good idea, but ultimately, they want to make money and get promotions. And they recruit people that they can easily manipulate and buy into their system. Unless you're a Aventurine who is just a straight up slave and has no choice no matter what. Obviously, there's a lot of different departments in the IPC, so to say that the whole entity is evil in general is very just ignorant. There's probably a lot of people within that aren't. But overall, Topaz isn't getting a promotion because she did the ethical thing. They're just mad that they lost out on an opportunity and money, so they demoted her immediately. It's a win-win for them. They can either help out a dying or vulnerable planet, loan them money, and if they don't get paid back, they won't invest in a planet that they can't mine, find some sort of benefit to flip this planet, some kind of resource, like Jarrillo 6. They wouldn't have lent that money to begin with, knowing full well they might not get paid back to a struggling, dying planet with a Stellaron and Fragmentum. Well, they already had a plan to harvest and take over the planet just to sign these documents. And for planets that don't cooperate, they have their group of goons with their stones, with their cornerstones. And these are super powerful individuals that have enhanced abilities with these stones, granted by Diamond, through his emanation with preservation. But that is essentially a breakdown of the IPC, what they want with Penacony, and how they function as a group. They're just Honkai Star Rail's galactic version of the reserve banks. Call it what you will. Do you think the banking system of our world is good? I mean, it's probably necessary for the cosmos to thrive in this world, such as our own real world, but are they gonna lose sleep over the fact that they're using literal slaves like Aventurine, who have no family, and take advantage of vulnerable people and vulnerable planets? Not if it means they make money. But overall, do I think they're evil? I guess yeah. In a sense, yeah. Not like your typical bad guy evil, but a more complex deep evil like our own real world banking system and how it's all corrupt. How rich suits would rather see you get snuffed out if it means they make an extra buck. Obviously, these systems are there to help people like our real world, and I'm sure people in Honkai Star Rail, the galactic banking system, it does help. But with that being said, they hire slaves, they know what goes on the dark world of Honkai Star Rail, they take advantage of suffering planets, and it's ultimately to just build this empire. Overall, I think they're very interesting and very relatable to our real world organization. I am curious to see what happens with Aventurine, so I do wonder if not only did he accomplish his mission, but is he still a slave to the IPC? I guess we'll find out when 2.2 drops, but thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.